Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the 160-pound middleweight division for the 2023 top 10s, and this is going to be the on the bubble video. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So, on the bubble, what does it mean? It means it's a new segment that I'm doing with the top 10s. It's basically the fighters that are on the verge of busting into the top 10 in 2024. And either because they have a good name, or they're getting an opportunity that we know for sure, or because they're ranked highly in one of the 4 governing bodies and could be earning a title shot or a final eliminator to get in line for a title shot. It could be one of those, could be 2 of those, could be all 3. So in no particular order, let's run through all these fighters and talk about it. We start with Myram Nursultanov, who is the WBC's #1 ranked contender. He's also #2 in the WBO. And middleweight, him being the #1 contender, it just really is dependent on what happens with Jermall Charlo. And Jermall Charlo, the WBC champion, who hasn't fought in over 2.5 years for the belt, is right now in discussions. You know, he's definitely a candidate for Canelo, and I really think in May Canelo's considering either Charlo or he's considering Jaime Munguia. So if Charlo does not get the Canelo fight, I think Charlo might fight here at 160, but he's probably facing his interim champion, Carlos Adames, which means what I'm trying to say is Nursultanov, I think, could compete in a WBC final eliminator at that point to determine a mandatory challenger. But if Charlo does land the fight, I think there's a chance the WBC might strip Charlo of the title and upgrade Adames to champion, and then they might order Carlos Adames to fight his #1 contender, which is Nursultanov. So I think Nursultanov's probably going to do that dance right there and wait. There's also the chance, though, that he could land a potential WBO title shot against Janibek Alamanhalai, because Kazakh style, Janibek is a WBO and IBF unified champion, and he could be defending his 2 titles against Chris Eubank, who's his #1 contender in the WBO. But if Eubank passes on that fight, then he might end up offering to fight to Nursultanov. But we'll see. I definitely think Nursultanov's going to get at least an eliminator this year to move in line for a world title, because he's highly rated in 2 different governing bodies, which is big. Then there's Michael Zarafa from Australia. He's the WBA's #1 ranked contender. He's the mandatory. He is stepping aside for what is the proposed catchweight showdown between Erislandy Lara and Danny Garcia for the WBA middleweight belt, and then he's supposed to be next in line. Now, we haven't heard anything official on that fight between the 2 yet, Lara and Garcia, when that fight's going to take place. It was originally supposed to take place in August of last year, and then December of last year. And now that Showtime and the PBC are working together, there's talks about a fight taking place in the early part of the year, but we have not heard anything official. I still think Lara's going to fight Danny Garcia, and then I think the WBA needs to put pressure on Lara to fight Zarafa before the end of the year, or Danny Garcia. But I think Zarafa is either going to, I think he'll get his title shot this year. I think he will. But we'll see. We'll see how the WBA handles the situation. Then there's Denis Radovin, who is the IBF's #3 ranked contender right now. I don't really know Radovin. He hasn't really done much, but he's ranked highly in the IBF. And Janibek is looking for opponents right now. There's no #1 or #2 contender, so Radovin is technically the highest rated contender. And if Janibek does not land the Eubank fight or a bigger name opponent, he's going to start dealing with mandatories and just getting them out of the way. And Radovin could get a mandatory fight with Janibek, or he might end up fighting in an eliminator to get in line for the title. So either way, I think Radovan's going to get some kind of opportunity in 2024. Then there's Hamza Shiraz, who's the WBC's number 4 contender, undefeated middleweight. Got to push. In the WBC, it's hard to tell what the hell's going to happen for their belt, but Shiraz is ranked in other governing bodies too, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an opportunity at something. But he is a fighter that people are kind of paying attention to, so I think he might get an opportunity at an eliminator before the end of the year, but we'll see. Then there's Cornflake Lamana, the former world title challenger. He's a WBA's number 4 contender right now. I mean, in the WBA, he could end up getting an opportunity against somebody, just because, you know, people kind of know him. He's been in a ring with Erislandy Lara, but I really don't expect much. But he might be that kind of stepping stone, gatekeeper type guy that fighters want to sign up to face off against, to try to upset the apple cart and beat him and push towards a world title fight. So we'll see. I think he might play a stepping stone or something like that, which will give him an opportunity. Then there's Andre Mikhailovich, who's the IBF's number 4 contender. Well, he's almost in the same boat as Dennis Radovan. He might end up fighting Dennis Radovan in an IBF final eliminator this year. They're the 2 highest rated contenders right now, and Janibek is going to be looking for opponents if he can't get that big fight. And even if he does, he might still want to just make mandatories and to keep dominating the division. So we'll see what happens and if this guy gets a shot. Then there's Nathan Haney, who's the WBO's number 4 ranked contender. Haney could get some kind of an eliminator, or you never know, he might be a guy that Janibek ends up fighting. Janibek is currently in optional mode with his 2 belts, but he could be ordered to fight a number 1 contender at any moment. They're trying to get him and Chris Eubank to fight each other. Eubanks is number 1 contender in the WBO, so that would serve as a mandatory. But if they can't, and the WBO allows Janibek to make another optional defense, he might end up going after a guy like Nathan Haney, somebody that will really want to fight. Then there's Connor Coyle, who's the WBA's number 5 contender. Haven't really heard much about him. He's a decent fighter, undefeated, I believe, and he's ranked highly in the WBA, so he might get a shot, at least to get in an eliminator of some sorts. Then there's Danny Garcia, the former 2-division world champion. He's supposed to be meeting Lara at a catchweight of 155 for the middleweight title. I think he's going to get it, and I think he's going to lose, and then I think he's going to be done. But the opportunity is the most important thing, and he will be getting the opportunity. In my opinion, I think he's still going to get that fight with Erislandy Lara this year. So we'll see how he does, and if he decides to even hold on to the middleweight belt, if he were to capture it. And then finally is Demetrius Andrade, the former 2-division world champion. He moved up to 168 and suffered the first defeat of his career at the hands of David Benavidez. After that, his trainer came out and said that they feel like he's better suited to fight at middleweight. So Andrade could be moving back down, and he would get opportunities. He really would if he decides to move back down, particularly against Janibek, who's sitting there and is probably down to fight him. I think also a guy that might be down to fight him would be Liam Smith, former world champion. So Andrade, I think, can get opportunities. He just has to take them. He has to stop waiting around, and I think he's going to be humble, and I think he's going to want to fight those kind of fights anyways going forward. So we'll see what happens. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my 2024 or 2023 top 10s on the fighters that are on the bubble in the 160-pound middleweight division. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.